My name is Rachel Porter, and at 29 years old, I was in the middle of a 12-page financial report when my phone lit up with my mom's name. Not a text, a call. That alone was strange. My mother hates phone calls. She lives on voice notes, reaction emojis, call me later messages. But calling me during work hours? That usually meant something was seriously wrong. The last time she called before 5 p.m. was when my grandmother slipped in the shower. So I answered immediately. Hey, Mom, I'm in the middle of... Good, she cut in. Then listen, you'll need to wire $50,000 to your brother before Christmas. My fingers froze above the keyboard, the open spreadsheet blurred. 50,000? I repeated, thinking I'd misheard. Yes, she said again, bored, like she was confirming the price of paper towels. He's run into a little problem with his startup. It's normal, these things happen, and you're the only one in the family who actually has real money. That sentence, "You're the only one who has real money," hit harder than the amount. Mom, I said slowly, are you asking me? No, she snapped, her tone sharpening like a knife. Rachel, this is your family. This is your responsibility. We raised you better than to watch your brother drown. I opened my mouth, closed it, opened it again. My screen cursor blinked like it was tapping its foot, waiting for me to go back to being the Rachel everyone relied on. So you're telling me I have to pay his debt because it's your duty, she hissed. You're successful. He needs help. We're not discussing this. In the background, I heard the TV, the hum of the living room, my dad's voice. I didn't hear him object. I already knew what that meant. Dad agrees with this, I forced out anyway. He's right here, she said. A muffled cough, then Dad's monotone floated through the speaker. It's the right thing to do, Rachel. Of course it was, because it didn't cost him a cent. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed again. Notification from the family group chat. Max, my younger brother, had just sent a thumbs-up emoji. That was his only contribution to a $50,000 conversation. I stared at it so long the screen dimmed. Mom, I said finally, you didn't even ask if I could help. Don't play games, she snapped. We know what you make. We know what you save. You have enough. This isn't optional. If you refuse to help your own brother... Her voice turned ice cold. Don't you dare spend Christmas with us. There it was, the ultimatum, the emotional invoice. I exhaled through my nose, closed my laptop halfway, and leaned back in my chair. Out in the hallway, my coworkers were laughing about something. My project deadline flashed in the corner of my screen. My coffee was getting cold. And in the middle of all that, my family had just dropped a $50,000 bill, like they were reading the electricity meter. I'm not sending the money, I said quietly. Mom didn't gasp. She didn't ask why. She didn't even pretend to care about my reasoning. Her tone dropped lower. Then don't come home, she said. If you walk away from this responsibility, you walk away from this family. Dad said nothing, which again meant agreement. Another buzz from the group chat. Max. Sis, seriously, just fix it. Stop being dramatic. And that was the moment. The exact second something in me flipped. Not a loud break, not a screaming rage, not humiliation. Just clarity. A clarity I should have had years ago. They weren't asking me for help. They weren't hoping I'd support him. They were entitled to it. In their minds, my accomplishments weren't mine. My money wasn't mine. My future wasn't mine. I was the family's backup generator, always on, always available, always paying. I looked at my reflection in the black laptop screen. Same face, same office, same blazer. Different mind. They thought threatening me with losing them would scare me. Instead, it felt like they'd opened a door I'd been too afraid to touch. Okay, I said simply. Mom paused. Okay, what? Okay, I repeated and hung up. No speech, no arguing, no bargaining. I set the phone face down on the desk and let the silence settle around me like a new skin. I wish I could say I went back to work. I didn't. I stared at the cursor blinking in the corner of the report. The numbers meant nothing. My brain was somewhere else entirely, in a house 3 hours away where my parents had just told me my worth began and ended with what I could wire before Christmas. My phone buzzed again. New message from the group chat. Max, you're being weird about this. Just send it. Just send it. As if $50,000 was pocket change. As if I were a malfunctioning ATM. I locked my screen and pushed my chair back from the desk. My manager walked by juggling 2 coffees and asked if I was ready for the afternoon presentation. I forced a small smile and nodded, because that's who I was here, the competent one. The woman who always had her act together. But inside, a different script was loading. Not the dutiful daughter, not the fallback provider, not the emotional punching bag. Someone else. I walked into the hallway, pretending I needed a breather. Truth was, I did. My heart wasn't racing. It was too calm. The kind of calm you feel right before all your denial collapses at once. I leaned against the tall window and watched cars crawl through downtown like ants. People heading somewhere they wanted to be. People who weren't expected to bankroll another adult's stupidity. My phone buzzed again. Mom, we'll make this simple. If you refuse, you're choosing to break this family. You're choosing distance. You're choosing selfishness. Dad, this isn't how we raised you. Raised me to do what? I wondered. To pick up after their favorite child forever? Another buzz. Dad, we're counting on you. Don't disappoint us. And that was it. I wasn't disappointing them. I was simply not obeying them. There's a difference. I walked back to my desk, but instead of opening the report, I opened a different folder. One I hadn't touched in months. Relocation opportunities. I'd collected job offers and messages from recruiters over the last year and told myself I'd look at them later. Later meant never, because I lived within driving distance of my parents. Because guilt is the heaviest chain you can wrap around your own ankles. The first email on the list was from a company on the West Coast that wanted to fast-track me for a senior role. Great benefits, huge salary increase, full relocation package. I'd ignored it when it came in because I was comfortable, because things were fine, because my family needed me. Needed my money, that is. Now I clicked it open and, for the first time, saw it for what it really was. A door, wide open. I hit reply. Hi, is this position still available? I'm open to interviewing immediately. My heart didn't pound. My hands didn't shake. It felt like sending any other work email. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. New email. Yes. Can you do a video interview in 1 hour? 1 hour. Perfect. I spent the next 40 minutes in the office bathroom, splashing water on my face, fixing my hair, straightening my blazer. Not because I wanted to impress them, but because I wanted to look like someone who had already stepped into a new version of herself. The interview was clean, efficient, almost surreal. They asked what I was looking for. I said, growth. They asked why now. I told them the truth. It's time. They asked when I could start. Immediately. At the end, the hiring manager smiled. We'd love to have you. Sending the offer now. I stared at my inbox. For the first time in years, it felt like oxygen actually reached the bottom of my lungs. A new job, a new city, a clean break. I grabbed my bag, walked out of the office, and texted my manager the truth. Family emergency. I need to take a few days. Not a lie. Just not the version of the story my family would tell. On the drive home, my phone buzzed over and over in the cup holder. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I knew every message already. More guilt, more orders, more entitlement. My parents weren't worried about me. They were worried about their deadline. Before Christmas, before Christmas, before Christmas. As if my support was a seasonal subscription they expected me to renew. At home, I pulled out a suitcase. Not the small weekend one, the big one. The one you pack when you're not sure when or if you're coming back. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, work clothes, laptop, passport, essentials. I stood in the middle of my living room, suitcase open, phone buzzing with another incoming call, and realized the most important truth of all. There was nothing in this apartment worth staying for except the habit of staying. And habit wasn't a good enough reason anymore. The moment I zipped the suitcase shut, something inside me clicked into alignment. A straight line where there had always been a crooked one. I wasn't running away. I was finally walking towards something that belonged to me. At 10:42 p.m., I booked a one-way ticket out of state. At 12:15 a.m., I locked my apartment door behind me. At 3:03 a.m., I sat at the gate, waiting to board. My phone buzzed again. Mom, I hope you're thinking clearly. Your brother is counting on you. I put the phone face down. When the boarding announcement played, I stood, grabbed my suitcase, and walked toward the jet bridge without looking back. My family thought they'd given me an ultimatum. They'd actually given me a starting point. When the plane touched down just after sunrise, there was no tug of guilt. No automatic instinct to text landed Mom. No urge to check whether Max had sent more entitled reminders. Just silence. Passengers around me scrambled for overhead luggage, complained about the temperature, wrestled kids into coats. I stayed seated for a moment, watching my breath fog slightly in the cold cabin air, realizing that for the first time in my adult life, I had no obligations within a 100-mile radius. My phone reconnected to the network with a vengeance. Buzz, 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 buzz. Like a hive waking up angry. I didn't open anything yet. I walked off the plane into the bright terminal, the noise folding around me, rolling suitcases, crying toddlers, announcements, coffee machines. All of it blended into a kind of comforting static. My family had never been static. They were constant alerts, constant emergencies. I sat down at an empty gate, took out my phone, and finally swiped open the notifications. 38 missed calls from Mom, 19 from Dad, 7 from Max, dozens of messages. The first wave was predictable. Mom, where are you? We need to discuss the transfer. Dad, we're waiting for confirmation. Max, sis, come on. It's almost Christmas. Then the tone shifted. Mom, why did the power shut off? The house is dark. The internet isn't working. Fix it. Dad, phone bill overdue. That can't be right. Your mother's card declined at the store. Did something happen? Panic sharpened. Mom, the emergency savings account is empty. Explain. Max can't use the card you set up for him. They said the authorization was removed. Is this a glitch or did you do something? Dad, this better be a technical issue. If you touch the accounts, we are going to have a serious discussion. I actually laughed out loud, right there in the terminal. A serious discussion. Like we were colleagues reviewing quarterly losses. Then came the inevitable. Mom, we literally cannot order groceries. The apps are linked to your card. Fix it now. Dad, stop ignoring us and do something. And finally, hours later, the guilt punch they thought was nuclear. Mom, 4:07 a.m. This is cruel. After all we've done for you, this is how you repay us? Your brother is panicking. We can't live like this. After all we've done for you. That line landed like a joke told too late at a party that had already ended. I scrolled again. Max, 4:13 a.m. Sis, what did you do? Dad's losing it. Not a thank you, not an apology, not even a hint of awareness that I'd been covering everything. Just shocked that the ATM had shut down. I locked the phone and let my head fall back against the plastic chair. This wasn't revenge. It wasn't punishment. It was correction. A system reset. They weren't suffering. They were experiencing the absence of free labor and free money they'd built their lives around, and they had the audacity to call that cruel. I stood, rolled my suitcase toward a coffee kiosk, ordered a black coffee, then found another empty gate. I opened my laptop and connected to the airport Wi-Fi. Time to untangle the last of the financial web. I logged into my main bank account. The numbers refreshed. Utilities, canceled. Streaming bundle, canceled. Emergency fund, transferred out. Authorized user, removed. But there were still 2 more leeches I hadn't touched yet because they required identity steps. The family phone plan and the shared cloud storage account, both under my name, both linked to my payment method, both quietly draining money every month. I navigated to the telecom site first. 4 lines, mine, Dad's, Mom's, Max's. The 3 of them lived under my primary responsibility. Funny, they'd never acted like they were under my responsibility, except financially. I clicked through the menu. Remove from plan. Transfer billing ownership. A pop-up appeared. Once complete, these lines will no longer have access to your benefits or payment method. I confirmed. Same with the cloud plan. Years of photos, documents, shared passwords, subscriptions, they'd all been hanging from my account like vines. I kicked all 3 of them off. My laptop chimed twice. New emails. Your transfer request has been submitted. Your shared members have been removed. Good. Clean. Final. I took a sip of coffee, watching business travelers argue about boarding groups, and felt a strange, quiet warmth in my chest. Not triumph, not spite. Relief. For once, I wasn't fixing the crisis. I wasn't patching over someone's mess. I wasn't the stabilizer holding other people's chaos together. They had created the chaos. Now they could organize it themselves. My phone buzzed again. Incoming call. Dad. I stared at the screen. A part of me wanted to ignore it again. But another part, the one tired of them telling the story without my voice, knew I needed to say it at least once, clearly. I accepted the call and held the phone to my ear. He exhaled like he'd been underwater. Where are you? I waited a full second. Not there. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting. He inhaled sharply. Your mother hasn't slept all night. She thinks you're having some kind of breakdown. She's terrified. Right. That's exactly what people feel when the grocery delivery app declines. What do you want, Dad? I asked. What do I want? He snapped. I want to know why every account under your name suddenly shut down. Why the utility payments stopped. Why your mother's card didn't go through for basic necessities. Why you would do something so reckless. Reckless, I repeated, flat. Not a question. A diagnosis. Yes, he said loudly. Your actions have consequences, young lady. I almost smiled. Young lady. I was nearly 30. For a moment, I just listened to him breathe, long, frustrated exhales. The quiet voice in my head, the one I'd ignored for years, whispered, "Tell him the truth." So I did. I didn't shut your accounts down, I said. Well, someone sure as hell did. I stopped paying for them. Silence. A hard, stunned silence. You what? I stopped paying for things that should never have been my responsibility in the first place. He let out an incredulous laugh. We depended on those. I know, I said calmly. You depended on me. Constantly, quietly, without asking, without contributing, without ever acknowledging what it cost me. That's ridiculous. Utilities, I listed. Streaming services, phone plan, emergency account, the credit card you've had access to for 5 years, all tied to me, all draining my money every month, all assumed to be permanent. He tried to interrupt. I didn't let him. And when I finally said no to sending $50,000, not a loan, not a favor, a demand, Mom's response wasn't concern. It wasn't surprise. It was, if you don't obey, don't come home. He didn't speak. The silence on the line suddenly felt heavier. I took that seriously, I finished. Dad inhaled sharply, then exhaled through his teeth. You're blowing this out of proportion. A family supports each other. A family asks, I said. You ordered. This is because of your mother's tone? You're tearing the family apart because of a tone? I actually laughed. It's not about a tone, it's about a pattern, and I'm done enabling it. His voice hardened. Well, your brother is devastated. He thinks you hate him. I don't hate him, I said. But I'm done being his safety net. If he wants a startup, he can fund it. If he wants credit, he can earn it. If he wants to fail, he can face consequences like the rest of us. This isn't how we raised you. You raised me to be responsible, I replied, not to be exploited. Something in his breath caught. For a rare moment, he had no retort. Then, softly, you left. I froze. You actually left, he repeated, like he'd only now realized this wasn't a bluff. Yes. Why? He whispered. And there it was, the opening. Not for anger, not for revenge, for clarity. Because staying made me a stranger to myself, I said quietly. Because every accomplishment I had became a resource for you, not something I could feel proud of. Because you never saw me as an adult with boundaries, just a wallet with legs. Dad didn't yell. He didn't call me dramatic. He said the most honest thing he'd said in years. I didn't realize, he murmured, how much we relied on you. There it was, the first admission, the first crack in the wall. But cracks don't fix structures. They reveal what needs to fall. I'm starting a new job tomorrow, I said. In a new city. I need space. I need distance. I need a chance to build a life that isn't anchored to somebody else's demands. He swallowed. And Christmas? I won't be there. A long silence, then quietly. Your mother won't take that well. That's not my responsibility anymore. The line stayed quiet for 10 seconds. I hope someday you'll come back, he said at last. Someday, I said gently, when I'm treated like family, not infrastructure. And I ended the call, not slammed, not dramatic, just ended, a clean cut. I sat there in the terminal, staring at the gray wall in front of me, feeling my heartbeat settle into a rhythm that felt right, balanced. I hadn't screamed, I hadn't begged, I hadn't justified. I'd simply told the truth in a family that only ever tolerated truths that kept them comfortable. My phone buzzed again. Mom, your father is upset. Are you proud of yourself? I turned the phone face down. For once, I didn't feel guilty. By the time I reached the corporate housing my new job had arranged, I'd ridden in silence through a city that didn't know my name, checked into a sleek lobby, and taken an elevator to a minimalist studio that smelled like new carpet and lemon cleaner. It wasn't home, but it was neutral territory, a clean slate. I dropped my suitcase by the bed, plugged in my phone, and stepped into the shower. Hot water. Quiet. No one pounding on the bathroom door asking me to fix the Wi-Fi. No one shouting from the hallway. Can you pay this real quick? When I stepped out, the phone lit up again. Incoming call. Aunt Linda. Mom's sister. She only ever called for 2 reasons. Gossip or intervention. This time I had a feeling it was both. I sighed and answered. Hi, Aunt Linda. Oh, thank God, she said immediately, her voice sharp but relieved. Your mother is having a fit. I mean a full-on meltdown. She called me sobbing, saying you've gone rogue and attacked the family's stability. What on earth is happening? The narrative was already forming. Nothing happened, I said calmly. I just stopped paying for things I never agreed to pay for forever. Stopped paying? She echoed, as if she'd misheard. Yes, utilities, phone plans, subscriptions, the emergency account. Oh, honey, she cut in. You were paying for all of that? Her tone changed instantly. Not judgment, shock. Yes, I said, for years. There was a pause, then a long, low whistle. They never told anyone that, she muttered. Of course they hadn't. Why would they? It would have exposed how lopsided everything was. Your mother made it sound like you drained their retirement or stole something, Aunt Linda went on. She said, Rachel cut us off from our own accounts. I cut them off from my accounts, I corrected. Aunt Linda wasn't stupid. She latched on to those words. Wait, she said slowly. Their accounts were under your name? Yes. Oh my God, she whispered. No wonder they're panicking. She sighed heavily. So this is about the 50,000? Yes. What did Max do this time? Startup debt, I said. Of course, she muttered. That boy couldn't run a lemonade stand without filing bankruptcy. I huffed a short laugh, more out of relief than humor. Your mother asked me to talk sense into you, Linda continued, her voice dropping into an impression. Tell her to fix the accounts and do the right thing. And what are you going to tell me? I asked. The truth, she answered. What you did was overdue. A lump formed in my throat, not from sadness, more from the weight of finally being seen. And between you and me, Linda added quietly, the way they've been talking, they're not upset about losing you, sweetheart. They're upset about losing your money. There it was, plain, unvarnished. The truth I'd always known, but never dared to say out loud. The next morning, my alarm went off at 6:30 a.m., and my brain did what it always did out of habit. Check in with Mom. See if anyone needs anything. Calculate how much of the day, how much of your salary, is already spoken for. Then the truth washed over me. No, I didn't have to do that anymore. I lay there in the unfamiliar bed in the temporary apartment, staring at the ceiling, letting that realization sink deeper and deeper. No one knew my address here. No one had a key. No one could pop by, just for a minute. No chores, no emergency visits, no surprise bills. I got up, showered, and actually took my time picking a shirt. Not the one that would make Mom proud in a photo. Not the one Max might borrow someday. Just the one I liked. My phone was face down on the nightstand. I could feel it buzzing every few minutes. Not yet. I burned my first piece of toast, laughed at myself, and made another. There was something ridiculously symbolic about that. For years, I woke up into other people's fires. Today, my biggest crisis was burnt toast. At 8:15, I finally picked up the phone. 96 unread messages. I didn't open the family group chat, not yet. I skimmed the preview lines like scrolling headlines. Mom, this is beyond selfish. Dad, we are done with this behavior. Mom, you've turned your back on your own blood. Max, sis, answer your phone. It's not that serious. Then another message from Max, time-stamped half an hour later. They're talking about taking a loan. They're freaking out. Just talk to them. Interesting. Yesterday it was entitlement. Today it was panic. I locked the screen. They'd survive. For the first time in their lives, they'd actually have to. I grabbed my bag and headed out for my first day at the new job. A new world. The office was 20 minutes away by tram. I stood in the crowded carriage surrounded by strangers with headphones, winter coats, coffee cups, and weary eyes. And for the first time, I felt light. Like I'd finally stepped out of a costume I was forced to wear since childhood. The building itself was absurdly beautiful. Glass, steel, a lobby big enough to swallow my parents' entire house. Twice. At reception, they printed a badge with my picture on it. Me, not the version of me my family sculpted. The HR coordinator walked me through hallways buzzing with energy. Teams brainstormed around whiteboards. People laughed at inside jokes I wasn't part of yet. And not one of them expected me to pay their phone bill. A few minutes later, she led me into a glass conference room where 3 people waited. My new direct manager, Jordan. Her boss, a senior team member. Jordan stood and smiled warmly. Genuinely. Rachel, you made it. We're really glad you said yes. Really glad I said yes. Not you owe us. Not we knew you'd come through. Such a tiny difference, and such a massive one. The onboarding flew by. We covered tools, responsibilities, future projects. They asked what I preferred, how I worked best, what I wanted my growth path to look like. Not once did someone ask me to help out just this once. Not once did someone guilt me about what they expected from me. Halfway through, my phone buzzed in my pocket again. I reached for it, then stopped. I wasn't on call anymore, not for them, not in that way. The first crack in Max. After the meeting, Jordan walked me to my desk. A window seat, dual monitors, brand new laptop. If you need anything today, she said, just ping me. And seriously, we were impressed with your interview. You earned this. Earned this. Not you're lucky we picked you. Not you should be grateful. Earned. The word felt new in my mouth. Around lunch, my phone buzzed with a different tone, the one I'd set back when certain people still deserved priority. Of course it was Max. I stepped into a quiet corner near the emergency exit before answering. What? I said, more blunt than I intended. Wow, hello to you too. There was noise behind him, the echo of a hallway. He must have stepped outside so Mom wouldn't hear. You disappeared, he said. Mom is losing her mind. Dad looks like someone died. I said nothing. And you cut the accounts? Left the state? What is this? Working, I answered. In another state. Wait, you actually moved. Yes. He let out a laugh that didn't sound like humor, more like disbelief. Okay, look, he said. I get that you're pissed, but all this? Cutting the accounts? Leaving? You're making a point. Point made. Now fix it before they have a stroke. I closed my eyes, counted 3 seconds. I didn't leave to make a point, Max, I said. I left because if I stayed, I'd spend the next decade being your personal bailout plan. He went quiet. I never asked you to do that, he muttered. You didn't have to, I said. Mom and Dad did it for you. Every time you failed, they came to me. Every loan, every just for now, every you're the only one who can help. You don't have to ask when the script is already written for you. That's not fair, he snapped. Okay, I said, let me ask you something. He didn't answer, but the silence gave permission. If roles were reversed, if you had the stable job, the savings, the good credit, and I had the debt, would you send me $50,000 just because Mom said so? Nothing. Silence stretched. I gave him 10 seconds. He didn't answer. There it is, I said quietly. He exhaled in frustration. So what, you're just gone? That's it? You're never coming back? I'm not saying never, I replied. I'm saying not like this. He shifted tactics. They think you hate them. I don't, I said, but I finally love myself enough to stop being a resource. He scoffed. You sound like a therapist's Pinterest board. Maybe, I said, but it's still true. So you're really not sending anything? He pushed. No. Not I can't. Not maybe later. Just no. He let the words sit for a moment. Then, you know, you might regret this, he said, voice turning defensive. They're talking about rewriting the will. What you get might change. I actually laughed. That's cute. They can leave everything to you. Seems like they already did. He bristled. You're burning bridges, Rachel. Maybe they needed to burn, I said. I've got to get back to work. Must be nice, huh? He muttered. New job, new city, no responsibilities. I almost responded. Almost explained that I still had responsibilities, just finally to myself. Instead, I said, it is, and hung up. The collapse begins. For the rest of the day, I stayed focused. New systems, new team, new life. But the buzzing in my pocket never stopped. At 3:14 p.m., during a break, I finally checked it. 17 new voicemails, over 60 texts, 4 missed calls from unknown numbers. Probably utilities, internet, subscription services, companies my parents sicked onto me, hoping I'd reconnect my payment method. I scrolled. Mom, 10:03 a.m. Your brother is having a panic attack. Are you satisfied? Dad, 1:17 p.m. This is childish and cruel. Mom, 1:22 p.m. Your aunt is taking your side? She's delusional. Dad, 1:40 p.m. If this is about the $50K, we can work something out. Come home. That one almost made me laugh. 2 days ago, do this or don't come home for Christmas. Now, we can work something out. Consequences rewrite narratives fast. Then I saw the message that told me everything. Max, 2:05 p.m. Mom blamed Dad for letting you get out of hand. Dad blamed Mom for spoiling me. Mom told him he's useless. Dad told her she's never earned a dime in her life. They're screaming. It's wild. Then another. They said this is your fault because you're the stabilizer, and you removed yourself. I stared at that word. Stabilizer. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did for them. The moment I stopped stabilizing them, their real fault lines finally showed. Another message. Max, 2:29 p.m. They're talking about selling the house. My stomach dropped. Selling the house. The house they renovated with my emergency fund. The house they bragged about hosting Christmas in. I typed, why? Max answered immediately. Bills. Dad says without your help we can't stay afloat. There it was, the truth uncloaked. Max typed again. Sis, I know I joke a lot, but did you really carry us that much? I didn't sugarcoat it. Yes. The typing bubbles appeared, disappeared, reappeared. Finally, I didn't realize. It wasn't an apology, but it was a crack in the golden child delusion. And cracks, I'd learned, eventually let light in. I walked back to my temporary apartment after my first full day of work with a grocery bag in one hand, takeout in the other, and an unfamiliar sense of peace. Not excitement, not triumph, not relief alone. Just peace. A quietness that wasn't available in the house I grew up in. When I stepped inside, no one was shouting from another room. No one needed me to fix a crisis. There was no unpaid labor waiting, no emotional bill to settle. I heated up the takeout, set it on the little kitchen table, and let the silence wash over me. Only after I'd eaten, showered, and changed into a t-shirt did I pick up my phone again. There were fewer messages than before. The frenzy had faded. The panic had cooled into something quieter, darker. I opened them one by one. Silence, then the turn. Mom, 6:22 p.m. Your grandmother says you spoke to her. Don't take her side. You're being manipulated. Dad, 7:10 p.m. If you expect us to apologize, we won't. Mom, 7:11 p.m. We did nothing wrong. You're dramatic. Dad, 7:12 p.m. But we do need to talk. Then Max, 8:05 p.m. They're exhausted. Mom's been crying off and on. Dad looks 20 years older. The house is weirdly quiet. A second message. The loan officer came to the house today to verify income. It didn't go well. I locked the phone. Not out of cruelty, out of understanding. This wasn't my crisis anymore. I wasn't the fire department. I wasn't the stabilizer. I wasn't the backup generator humming quietly in the background. They were finally meeting the reality I'd been shielding them from. And reality was expensive. Steam, then clarity. I took a long shower and let the steam fog the mirror. 48 hours. That's all it had taken for their entire financial ecosystem to collapse without me quietly propping it up. I brushed my teeth, climbed into bed, and reached over to turn off the lamp. My phone buzzed. I almost ignored it until I saw the name. Dad, a text this time, short, unlike the others. Dad, 11:48 p.m. Your mother wants to ask you to come home for Christmas, but she's too proud to say it herself. I didn't move, didn't breathe. Another message came a moment later. Things are falling apart faster than we expected. We didn't realize how much you were doing. We should have. I should have. That one hit differently. Not like guilt, not like manipulation, like grief, like recognition, like truth. Then a final message. Just tell me what you need from us. Please. Please. A word I had never heard from either of my parents. They use please for waiters, for neighbors, for strangers. Never their own daughter. I read the message again. Then I looked around the quiet apartment. The fresh sheets, the unopened luggage, the new laptop on the desk, the future waiting for me in the morning. My life, mine, finally uncluttered by obligations nobody ever asked permission to give me. I realized something with a clarity that felt like stepping into a warm light. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't punishing them. I wasn't trying to teach a lesson. I was simply choosing myself for the first time. I typed back one sentence. I need space. No monologue, no lecture, no list of conditions. Just the truth. Dad read it instantly. Typing. Bubble appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared again. Then finally, okay, one word, but the right one. I set the phone on silent, turned off the lamp, and lay back in the dark, listening to nothing but my own steady breathing. Tomorrow I had meetings, onboarding, new coworkers to meet, projects to start, a whole new life to step into. A life that didn't see me as a wallet with legs. A life where my worth wasn't measured by how much I could give away. My family wanted $50,000. They expected obedience. They demanded that I play the role they wrote for me. And when the stabilizer finally stepped out of the structure, they discovered how shaky it really was. But I wasn't collapsing. I was beginning. And somewhere between the last flicker of my phone screen and the darkness settling around me, a thought drifted through my mind like a final, peaceful truth. I didn't lose a family. I stepped out of a role that never let me be myself. I closed my eyes, and I slept deeply, quietly, like someone whose life finally belonged to her.